Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Ursinus College, Peter Gallagher. But before we get to that, let's tell you about Ursinus. Ursinus is in Collegeville, PA. They got about 1,500 students, 15 and some change. They have an 82% acceptance rate and an 81% graduation rate. Now, before I go any further, I have to say this is, as I was doing the research to tell you about the school the school itself, they're a top 100 nationally ranked liberal arts college. So of the liberal arts schools, they're in the top 100. So if that's your cup of tea, you need to be looking at Ursinus. It's $75,000 before aid. It's $30,000 after aid. Their top three majors as of last year were applied econ, bio and biosciences, and mass communication and media studies. We also have some news that it's going to come and replace the overtime segment. Chad Ostlin's going to join us to talk to us about the 18 iPads that are going to be available to coaches on the sideline. We're also going to talk a little bit with Coach about the playoff structure, as that decision is going to be being made today. So with all that being said, not my job to tell their story. Make sure that you talk to your admissions counselor, your guidance counselor, your coaches that are recruiting you. They'll give you more of the information than what I just gave you. Go on to Ursinus' website to learn all of their information. But without further ado, this is Coach Gallagher.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of Ursinus College, Peter Gallagher. Coach Gallagher, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carlo. I'm happy to be on Dingo Talks. Although I'm not an Australian dog, I am happy to join your program.
Well, you know, we have two dingoes. There's the wild dog from Australia, and there's the fact that nobody can pronounce my last name. And it was easier to go by Dingo than it was to go by Guantanamo Bay, which was a nickname when I got to college. So
yeah, I'm sure. I figured it had something to do with your last name, but cool and catchy. And again, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Coach. We're going to do this the same way we do every week. I'm going to let you tell your story. First and foremost, we're going to put you in the time machine, take you back to your recruitment days. Why, how did you find yourself in Buchanan, West Virginia?
Yeah, well, you know, in my life, I have a lot of unique stories, right? And that's one of them. And, you know, I'm from Northern Vermont and you know, kind of grew up in a small community known for inventing the platform scale and being the Maple Center capital of the world. But, you know, you take that into being and also kind of grew up, my first love being a skier, had some, you know, some schools I applied to. And one day, you know, I was at a private school called St. Johnsbury Academy. A recruiter came in by the name of Paul Willis. And he was a really highly regarded soccer player for West Virginia Wesleyan, and he then joined the admissions team. Came in, I looked up, they had football, and I got out of third period to go down and talk to him. And next thing you know, my parents and I are taking a trip to Buchanan, and the nickname of Buchanan, West Virginia, is Sunny Buck, and it was sunny that day, and you know, it was kind of mountainy there in north central West Virginia, and they had spring practice. And I saw spring practice, and I was like, wait, this is so awesome. Like, they're practicing football in the spring. And one thing led to another, and I just said, hey, this is where I want to be. And you know, most places you get down there and you say, hey, once you walk around campus and meet a couple people, you usually have a pretty good idea if that's the place you want to be. So on to Sunny Buck I went, and had a great 4 years there.
Now, was coaching always part of this journey as you're going through playing football and whatnot? Was coaching always in the back of your mind, or was that not?
Yeah, it started to be, I think, you know, and it was just kind of it was just kind of like, hey, what am I going to do? Like so many seniors, right? And, you know, I did a business and a government major, and I always had some interest in politics or interest in like some finance and things like that. And a family acquaintance by the name of Bruce Wheeler, one of the most successful coaches in Vermont. We actually had some business transaction, bought some property from his family, and it's where actually my parents live now. And he knew a guy that grew up in the same region as I did in northern Vermont, the Northeast Kingdom, called NEK for short. A guy by the name of Bob Benson, and Bob Benson was the head football coach at Georgetown, and now he's the associate head coach at the University of Pennsylvania. Bruce called him and was like, "Hey, I got this guy," and I had met Bob before at some high school camps that he was cutting his teeth in coaching, and I was finishing up my high school career, and then started going to some of these camps as a coach with Bruce, and so he knew me loosely and called me up, said, "You want to stop by for an interview?" And I was stopped by at Georgetown on my way home from Buchanan, and a couple of days later he called me back, said, "Do you want to coach our defensive ends, outside linebackers?" I was like, got nothing else going on, so on to Georgetown I went, and it was really a great start to my career, and I've been real fortunate to get to a couple really great places before getting here to Ursinus.
Now, is it difficult that first year when you decide, like, yep, this is what I'm going to do, I'm done, the shoulder pads come off, I like to make the joke, the visor and the whistle go around your neck? Is it difficult that first year to make the transition? And what advice do you have for upcoming seniors that may be looking into doing the same thing?
Get into coaching because you want to influence people, right? Not just because you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I could still play." I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying that, right? Like maybe I did that first year. We had an NFL scout come, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to run a 40," and it said 5.3. I'm like, nah, no, and then you really start to dig in. It's a different deal. Like a lot of these seniors, you got to get up, you got to go to work. There's the grind of it. Get into coach. The advice would be, if I was giving advice to young guys wanting to get into coaching because the influence that you can have on so many people. Really, not just because you want to live, vicariously through your players or anything like that. There wasn't a whole lot of need for a 5'9" small but slow linebacker in the first place. Like, get in for the right reasons and influence people's lives.
Now, from your time at Georgetown, is it Georgetown to Wagner and then Dartmouth, or is it Georgetown to Dartmouth? Okay, so it's George. Why was it time to move from Georgetown to Wagner?
Well, I mean, Georgetown was just an amazing experience that landed in my lap. A couple $1,000s for being a part-time coach. But Bob did a great job, and there was a guy there, the associate AD at the time that was in charge of football, Dennis Canick, got us a row home on Capitol Hill. When I'm talking a row home on Capitol Hill, I'm talking like you walked out of the home and you saw the Capitol. Like wow. We rode our bikes through the mall, and we had a house in DC, and they got me a bartending job. So that was a really fun years there. But I had an opportunity, and I always did. You say, how was the transition from playing to coaching? I always did say, like, I knew if I was going to get into college coaching, I wasn't going to make a lot, but that was the time that graduate assistants were starting to become a thing, right? And Wagner and the head coach there, now AD, was both when I was there. Walt Hamline did a phenomenal job building his staff with a lot of young talent and giving them a free master's degree. I was there for 2 years and lived in the dorms the same. I had housing. I also had a meal ticket at Wagner, and it was something like 45 credit hours a year free. So and Walt did a great job of finding other jobs for his coaches too. It was probably, I had more cash in my pocket my 2 years at Wagner than I do any day right now after being here for the time frame I had. New York City was there, and I was in my young 20s. So it was a a fabulous time. But it was time to move, right? You can't stay making what you're making at that level. You want to move, and the coaching profession more than any other profession, probably. Like you want to get more and climb. You got to move. So there to Dartmouth. What a transition that was. Dartmouth is right where I grew up too. Only about an hour south of the Northeast Kingdom. So it was like, wow, this is awesome. And being a part of that staff in Division I, and it was a bigger staff, even though Wagner was Division I, too. And it was a bigger staff, and going to play at just the facilities, right? But going to play at the Yale Bowl, going to play at Harvard, going to play at Princeton, seeing those venues and being around that atmosphere was amazing, and really set me up to go to the University of Rochester, where really was my first full-time job as a defense coordinator at the University of Rochester. So, five stops in 8 years. And, now this fall, I'll be entering my 24th fall here at Ursinus.
Well, and so before we get ahead, because I want to get to the 24 years, a long time to be in one place. But once you got to Rochester, what was appealing about the Ursinus job that pulled you away from Rochester, and why have you stayed there for so long?
Yeah, really a great question, because Rochester is just what a fabulous town, right? City, Kodak and Bosham Lum, and just the whole deal. You could drive through downtown Rochester. I lived in West Veronica. I could drive through downtown Rochester 8:30 in the morning and maybe make all the lights. So it was really, really a great place. And my wife was in at University of Rochester as well, and her career started going. But it was Ursinus, right? It was in the Centennial Conference. I knew the type of it was a similar school to the schools that I had been at academically, and it was a school that I knew, like, if I was sitting in front of parents, like I was going to be able to recruit these kids and tell them, like, hey, this Ursinus can change your future, just like I could say that at Dartmouth, just like I could say that at the University of Rochester, and like I said, at Georgetown, it was something really, really appealing to me. And to tie in, an alum too at Wagner, I was hallmates. I lived on the same hall at the time with an Ursinus grad, and became friendly with Dan Mullen. And Dan Mullen, went on to be the head coach at Mississippi State and in Florida, and this, that, I left Wagner, and he left Wagner. He left Wagner to go to Columbia. I left Wagner, went to Dartmouth. He left Columbia, went to Syracuse. So I left Dartmouth and went to Rochester. So we were always, for about 6 years or so, we were kind of in the same area. And when the job came open, I started talking with him, and he also had a little influence of me taking this job, from talking to him about his experiences here. So, it was a job that I really felt that, that I needed to explore. And I'd only been at Rochester for a couple of years, but we had some really, really good success in turning around that program. And I looked at Ursinus as a place, as a national liberal arts college. And I knew that there was some value there with that. And just looking back in the day, I was a big map guy. Just looking at the atlas, Ursinus is right on the cusp of Greater Philadelphia. I mean, really would consider Ursinus Greater Philadelphia, and the school districts and the amount of football players that we could draw from here. I knew we'd have a chance.
Now, put us in the room with parents, players. Obviously, minus being a guy got to be able to play football. What are you saying to the parents to convince them with, they're going to trust you for the next 4 years with their son? And what are you saying to the players so they understand what it is to be an Ursinus guy?
It's first and foremost, Ursinus is a national liberal arts college, right? We're a leader in the national liberal arts scene. Like, we're very well respected, particularly here in the Greater Philadelphia area. But we're in the national category. Like, we're one of the best schools in the country. We're graduating our kids. We're retaining our kids. And you come to Ursinus, all right, we're going to develop you and position you to walk into somebody's office with your shoulders back, your chin up, be able to look somebody in the eye and say, hey, I'm the man for the job. Because I have skills. I have communication skills. It's a small school, right? You're sitting in a small classroom setting, and it's a liberal arts. You're going to be asked to do things and get outside your comfort zone, and that's going to develop you to be able to go and communicate with people and represent yourself and say, I'm the man for the job, and they're going to believe you. All right, and we talk about all the time. All right, we're going to position our kids and give our kids a platform to go out and live the American dream. Just like I'm living the American dream, right? You're going to be able to go out and, provide for you. If you choose to have a family, provide for your family, to, buy a home, get a job, get promotions, all from the skills that you learn here at Ursinus.
Now, Coach, I got to go back to the question. 24th season. You're going into the 24th season.
Going into my 24th fall. You have to take out COVID.
Take out the COVID year.
23rd season, yeah.
What has kept you at Ursinus for 24 years?
Yeah. So, I'm one of the few coaches in the country that can say that they're a football coach and they raised their children in the same home. A head coach nonetheless, right? So, go back to, my youth and my parents. My parents are outstanding people with really, really sound moral compass and gave me the skills and the understanding of the value of family. And certainly, I'm really proud about a lot of the accomplishments that we've had here on the football field, but really, really proud about being able to give my children the platform for success that they have had and the stability at home. And you got to include my wife in that and her amazing career as a mom / sports agent and a professional. My oldest daughter went to Loyola University and was an All-Patriot League soccer team. Incidentally, she got to do her COVID year as a grad student at Johns Hopkins. So, I got to see the Hopkins machine as a parent too, and, give them credit, right? Where credit's due. It's an amazing place. And when they called Kaylee, I was like, well, can't beat them, join them. Like, let's go. It was a fantastic ride for her. She won a national championship, went 22-0-2, and was on one of the most impressive soccer teams I've ever seen. Not to be outdone, her younger sister is going to be commissioned through at the United States Naval Academy, and is going to go on to flight school. And she had an amazing career as a soccer goalie for them, where she's second all-time saves in their program history, so, that combined with that same feeling of the types of kids that we're able to bring here to Ursinus, and seeing them develop and seeing them be able to go out and talk to them, after they graduated and seeing what they're doing in their lives, the types of people and the types of recruits that we're able to get and recruit here at Ursinus. There's no Nick Saban talk going on there, right? Like, have you seen his press conferences about the NIL and all those things? Everything here at Ursinus is still true. I really would not want to live in that world, right? And a lot of that credit too, why you got to go to that? I mean, figuring out, hey, look, we got something special here. My wife's an incredible professional and has been has had an amazing career as a fundraiser in the greater Philadelphia area, and some really, really impressive stops. And that the people here at Ursinus there's a couple people that I got to shout out to, like Laura Mulligan. Like, she won a national championship here as a coach, was a national champion as a player. She's just a champion all around, and she's a director of AP of our campus life. Was the AD, now moved on. Aaron Strobel now is the AD, and Marcus Hunter is one of the associated people that you can come to work with here on a day-to-day basis. Like, you don't find that a lot of places, and a lot of these people that you see chasing their tail, you hear about the guy that left. Not everybody's going to be Lance Leipold, right? And be at Wisconsin with Whitewater, and then next thing you know, he's at Kansas. That's the Cinderella dream, right? Like, things go wrong, like, and well, I'm going to go take this job for a couple more bucks, and next thing you know, I'm going to be doing something that I really don't want to do, or I don't have a passion about. So, the people and just, the family aspect of it is really why this has been such a successful run. And defining success comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And we've won our fair share of football games for sure. And but there's the other wins in my life and my career that keep me motivated, that keep me really excited about coming to work and being with these kids.
Coach, you touched on something there that's normally a later on question, but I think it's a good transition for what you were saying with the NIL and everything going on. What's the significance of Division III football?
Well, the significance is just like, it's football, right? I mean, the field isn't smaller. It's not anything. There's the same thing. The significance of it is you have a chance to impact people. You have a chance to teach people. You have a chance to build relationships, So, the significance of it is the same as any level, like, right? Well, so what is not significant about Division III football, right?
Absolutely.
That's there's 11 on 11, right? Like, the strategy and you get 4 downs to get 10 yards, right? Like, there's everything, and I'd argue too, like, I got in this league, when I got in the league, there was, there's Jim Margraf at Hopkins, Mike Donnelly, the late Jim Margraf, the late Mike Donnelly at Muhlenberg, Barry Streeter at Gettysburg for 36 years, Darwin Breaux with his run at Dickinson, Tom Gilbert with his run at F&M. I'm 29 years old at Ursinus, like, and looking at these guys saying, like, wow, these guys have all made a career out of this. What's the significance for them? Like, there is no, maybe a little smaller, a little slower. I guarantee you we're teaching as much or more than some of these other schools in our day-to-day coaching. And you got to give credit to my staff too. It goes back to why I'm staying here for so long. I've had guys stay with me, right?
Yeah.
Great football coaches, and Rob Quigley's been with me, kind of Georgetown connection, graduated from Georgetown, been here for 20 years. Steve Devlin, one of the most successful high school coaches here in the Philadelphia area, wanted to get to the next level. Jeff Endy, our offensive coordinator, played for me. That's so awesome when you have kids when you have players come back and coach with you. And I've had I've had several, and Jeff's a full-time offense coordinator now, dynamic play caller, and Jake Menard, a young, really, really hardworking, dynamic recruiter, coming to work with those guys every day. Like, I would want to come to work with those guys, but I would want to not come to work with them too, right? Like, I want to go and celebrate life with them, right? And they're my friends. And I've been a part of staffs where, that isn't the case, right? Like, we can talk and we can confront each other without being confrontational. And that's a big part of our success, is the continuity that we have had. So, if you're going to ask me what the significance of Division III football is, I'm going to ask you what's the significance of football in general, right? Because it's the same. It's not any different.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Coach. So now that we've had dust is settled, we're rolling into the 2024 season. What was your takeaway from the 2023 season? 8-3, 3-3 in the conference, and a Centennial-MAC Bowl win.
Yeah, so it was a turnover. We had some turnover from our previous year of 9-2, where the previous year, arguably, you're talking about one of the top 3 or 4 teams in program history. Like,
Okay.
The 2 games we lost, we had the ball at the end with a chance to win or tie, and it was really a dynamic team. Changed quarterback, change of so there was a lot of teaching involved, and we found ourselves, midway through the year, not really where we wanted to be. And, credit to the coaches and the players, right? We went and won our last 4. So, and positioned ourselves with a good amount of kids returning to take those lessons that we learned from 2023 and put them into 2024. So we're really excited about the campaign that we got coming up, and the players that we have positioned to compete and get out there and make a run at this thing.
Coach, a lot of talk going on right now about the playoff expansion. Are we going to 36 teams? Are we going to 40 teams? Should we expand? Should we not expand? Where do you fall on all that?
Well, I do feel that proportionately, Division III has the largest pool of teams, and unlike Division II, that does it like regionally, like some people can win their conference and not go. A lot of our conference automatic qualifiers, the players in those conferences get to experience a national playoff game.
Yeah.
And conferences like the Centennial, that I think are, arguably, and towards the top in the country, there's teams that don't get that opportunity. So, I'm about opportunity, right? We want to. Well, what are we doing here? We're trying to provide an experience for our student athletes and give them a platform for success. But we want them to have a great experience, and everything we do should be focused on that. Whether it's conference-wise, region-wise, nationally, like everybody should be on the same page. So for providing opportunity for our students and their experience is a definite yes for me. Like, let's do it. If we're not doing it, we should be thinking about how to do it. And I think that's where we're at now. And usually the voice of reason is going to win out, right? Like, so I think that's going to happen in this situation, and we're going to expand.
Now, do you foresee other conferences or more conferences doing what you guys in the MAC have done, creating these bowl series for teams so that there is more postseason opportunity?
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
you look at, and Steve Ulrich, our former commissioner, came up with the idea, and credit to him. But you look at most other sports, they have conference playoffs where the top schools and the teams get to play, and a lot of times more than that. And now the AQ a lot of times is developed from that. But again, it's about experience, right? Like, you get to play in the postseason. Most teams are not. So it's a model, absolutely a model for success, and it's a model for the experience of our players. So why wouldn't teams do that? Like, it's not that expensive. There's not and to be able to provide an equitable experience too, like going back to the NCAA, it's about access. It's about equity, right? It's about providing opportunity. When conferences can do that, sure, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, Coach, we come to my favorite part of the show. These are 5 random questions. One of them has to do with football. The rest of them are just about you. if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Well, my wife is, if she gets a chance to watch this, is going to be disappointed in my answer. Well, maybe not that disappointed, but I mentioned my folks earlier, but my parents live on we have a cabin rental business on a glacier-made lake in Northeast Vermont. It's pretty much the center of the universe, and if you would ever experience it, you would know. So, I'm a Vermont guy. Northeast Kingdom, go NEK. Vermont is my center. So, we're talking about the winters and maybe not being there in the winter, or maybe having a little escape and things like that. But if you were able to take a look at my folks' property that they have up there, you would probably answer that Vermont as well.
What is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
I would say that love is the strongest human emotion, and to motivate through love and appreciation is far, far greater than through anger or fear. And that's what our program is about, is about love and appreciation, and loving each other and wanting to achieve for each other.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
I would be interested in something in the financial sector, something, to do with financial planning or the time value of money or investments, something of that sort, real estate, and or like resort management, whether that be ski resort. I got one of the things, I talk about living the American dream. Like I'm a skier. I grew up in Vermont, right? And my kids I kind of quit skiing in Pennsylvania because I was just like, this just isn't worth it, right? It's like, it's not that good. But through some of one of my daughter's travel soccer, a bunch of dads were like, hey, now come up to this place and ski. I think you'd like it. So chances there are some of the most talented skiers in the Poconos and skiing at this mountain. That's actually really cool. So I joined, go up there and got a season's pass, and really it's been a really fun part of the winters for me now here. So ski resort management, just resort management or something in the financial sector is what I could see myself doing. But I'm too far engaged in this probably to be changing any career path right now.
So we wouldn't have been seeing you on Capitol Hill arguing with people across the aisle.
I do take a liking to a good political debate. And again,
what's the backbone?
My grandparents were a part of that. I don't try to push it here to the players, but just to have a sound understanding of what right means and what left means, and so you can make a good choice. Like
yes.
That is important to me. I do take a lot of interest in that.
All right, Coach. Best compliment you've ever received?
I got a face for radio.
We have that. That's a similar compliment. I got that before.
Yeah. That's what. So, oh boy, I don't know. The other day, I got a compliment that I was the coolest guy that someone had ever met. So I don't know. So I got a face for radio, or I'm a cool guy. I don't know. Who knows?
And then on the other side of compliments, it's the best insult you've ever received.
Well, that's more of a backhanded insult, but being insulted is a choice, right? You have a choice to be insulted. You have a choice to have your feelings hurt. Like I don't really acknowledge insults. I'm sure I don't know. One of the games we left our quarterback in too long this year, and we probably should have had him out. And he went down and looked like he grabbed his knee, and someone yelled, "That's what you get, Gallagher," or something like that. And my brother was at the game, so I turned over and I looked where he was standing, and I said, "Hey, some people in the stands are talking about you."
That's what you get.
It must not have been talking about me, but he has my last name, and so it must have been saying it must have been talking about my brother, which certainly could find his way into some trouble or insults in his day, in his best moments. So can't we all?
Coach, the last question I ask everybody, was there a question you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
I don't know. I wasn't really expecting. I was just ready to just kind of roll off the cuff with you here. So again, Carlo, I really appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate what you're doing for Division III football. And going back to your question, what was it that you said? What's the significance of Division III or whatever? We're doing the same thing everybody else is doing, right? Like the significance is we're coaching football, right? So there was no question, and it's just great to be on promoting this great institution, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to kind of tell my story, and I appreciate you promoting Division III football.
Thank you very much, Coach. And for those of you that know what comes next, we'll stick around. We'll go to overtime with my fiance. We'll try to explain. I don't know what side of the ball we're talking about this week. It varies week to week. We're trying to teach her the game so that next year when we go to pick games, she can actually watch them and understand the positions a little bit better, and not just pick a team because she likes their name or they didn't mess her up the week before, because that's a big one for her. She'll ride with a team as long as they don't mess her up. But for those of you that are sticking around, thank you very much for listening to Coach Gallagher's conversation, and we'll be right back, Chuckleheads. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Overtime. Serenity Brown is not joining me today. With today being the big meeting from the NCAA, there's a lot of things coming out here. And Chad Oslin is here to talk to us about one of the bigger things I think that's coming along. There's a new rule for the sidelines that covers all three divisions. And Chad's going to do his best to explain it to us and explain where we're going and what the ramifications are of all this. But I want to give you the opportunity to tell us. So let's talk about what's the new rule.
Well, the new rule will be that all levels of football have the opportunity to have up to 18 tablets on the sideline, whatever the combination would be. If you had 10 on the field and 8 in the coach's box, I mean, that would be the maximum, but whatever the distribution is would be up to the coaches. And it's primarily a reaction to what they're doing at Division I. I mean, they can't have a rule for Division I and a rule for the rest of the levels.
Now, is this, when you say it's a reaction to the Division I, that's the sign stealing and the trying to avoid all of that situation, or?
Well, I think part of it was last year, the Big Ten put in a couple requests to have allow tablets, and they were denied. Then they came up with the idea where they did it basically at the bowl games and to try it out, to see, hey, how's this going to work? Both head coaches had to agree to it. And when they did that, there was some success. And I think, from that, they're basically trailering this rule as part of what would happen with that.
Now, as we sit today on the 18th here, the committee is meeting, but it's a formality, right? This rule was already pretty much set in stone. They just have to go and finalize the vote today.
Right. Well, the vote's been done. I mean, it's been done for the better part of a month. This is different than what happened in 2016. In 2016, they basically had the rule. The rules was adopted by the coaches. Then it went to the ADs, and then it was, basically crushed by the presidents, because the totality of that is basically all the presidents at all levels. So the 133 FBS schools that would want this could single-handedly be stopped by the 247 Division III, the 168 Division II, and the 128 FCS. So the biggest challenge here is we have a lot of schools that are the haves and the have-nots.
Now, and I don't want this to come off as dickish in any way, but why should D3 coaches care? Because I've talked to a couple coaches. There's mixed reactions going on both sides. I don't think anybody really has a set opinion yet. But why should the Division III coaches specifically care?
Well, I think once the rule's been introduced and passed, then you're doing your kids a disservice by not having it, because you want to give your team every opportunity to win. I'll give a good example is people say like, well, I'm not going to do Twitter anymore. You don't have to delete your Twitter account. You don't blow up the post office because you're not going to send a letter anymore.
Right.
It's all really, what do you want to do with it? And ultimately right now, the technology that's available to us every day is becoming better, faster, quicker. And I'm not all for this either. I mean, the other part is, I think, this takes lazy coaches and makes them better coaches, because I can put a game plan together all week, and in 2 series, you've unraveled everything that I'm doing, and it's going to change play callers. Play callers are going to have to learn to adapt, and that's what will happen from this.
Now, and you're part of a conference that's going to happen here in a couple weeks, that's trying to explain all of this, right, and get everybody the base knowledge so they can go back to their schools and talk to their programs and their conferences. What else is the conference going to accomplish?
Really, the conference was originally set up for one single purpose, and that was to make coaching film better. We've got a lot of levels of football, from a standpoint of what cameras they use, who's shooting it. Certainly very few teams in Division III have a full-time video person. They might have a tight end coach that's overseeing video, but when you're coaching football and you're on the sideline or in the box, you have no idea what's going on. This is going to change a lot of that, because if you're going to have video on the sideline, and I would venture to guess that probably over half the teams in Division III don't travel their film crew. If you don't travel a film crew, you're going to have no film. And if the score before was going to be, tight, and they have video and you don't, the score is going to widen. I mean, and I think as much as this technology as anything is, believe it or not, I think it ties directly into gambling.
How so?
Well, if you trade bad game film, and now we get into a game, I have my kids now filming the game, and I'm looking at video, able to make adjustments because I can see the formations, I can see the splits, I can see the shades. And from that, if you're very astute, you can make those adjustments with your players in game. Whereas coming into the game, you may not have been as ready because the game film was poor.
Well, and that's there isn't an equity in the in-game film, right? I mean, you have some schools that it's the one camera on the 50-yard line, no movement, and this is what you get. And then other schools, St. John's, are doing different things and trying to elevate that experience from a film point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the people involved. I mean, most coaches, until they see it, they don't know what it's going to look like. I know when I talked to the Trinity coach last year, he made a comment that, wow, this St. John's film is really something. He was really impressed. Well, you're not that far away from having it as well, but you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
And that was the impetus for this Football Film Federation conference, was to bring coaches together from all over to learn, see technology, and kind of see the process and get that written down. Because the one thing is for sure, if film wasn't important before, it's going to become now.
Now, what do you say to, and I'm going to use the PAC as an example, being that I went to Bethany. What do you say for programs that maybe aren't in a financial position, especially given the fact that this year we have seen Division III programs seem to be falling almost weekly, maybe monthly? What do you do for the equity there? Because a Grove City, who's probably getting a lot of donations with their recent success, W&J, a Carnegie Mellon, and then your other side of the conference, which is the Bethanies, the Teals, the Alleghenies. How do you make it equal across the board?
It's tough to do that from a standpoint that you're talking about probably a minimum of $5,000 to $10,000 to do this. If you're just going to have 5 iPads, an iPad is about $800. You're talking about $500 just in iPads.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's getting the software that will make you be able to acquire the video. That's probably about $2,000 more. So you're talking between $7,000 or $12,000, depending on what you wanted to do. If you're going to have 10 iPads, which I think is a reasonable number. Then the other part with the iPads is we play games during the day. The high schools that have been doing this for a number of years now play at night. If these iPads get over 80 degrees, they shut off. So that's the other part of the conference is what to do, what are the techniques, what are ideas, what are things that you could do to make these things last throughout the game? How quickly do the clips come from the cameras to the tablet or the iPad, I should say in this case? Huddle, for example, is not a qualified vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a matter of just saying, oh, we'll go buy Huddle Sideline. Huddle Sideline doesn't meet the NCAA specifications at this point. And heck, I can't even get Huddle to respond to an email. So, I don't know how that becomes a thing also. And coaches will think that because they have Huddle, we'll just get Huddle. Well, Huddle's not the answer either.
When I saw the breakdown is it's no practice film, no previous game film, and nothing that did not happen today. So when we're in a game, you're only going to be able to pull up the previous series or the first quarter as opposed to the third quarter, not practice film or previous game film, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, after the game, that game film has to be wiped. So you can't come into game 2 and still have your film on there from game 1. It has to be just that game. You have to have the ability to do that. And that's what's made Huddle non-compliant, because they don't have any type of auto wiping software in their thing. Plus, it's tying it back to your coaching film.
Mm-hmm.
So you need something that's independent.
Now, what are the two? There are 2 brands, correct, that are kind of standalone in this industry. It's DV Sports and Sport Track. Did I get that right?
No, there's Game Strat, like game strategy, but just stop at the strat part of it. And then DV Sport. DV Sport right now is going to be doing the FBS and the FCS, and they're the ones that did the bowl games. They've done the NFL for 10 years. And when I say that is when you see the blue tablets that they have on the sideline, those are really managed by DV Sport, the software. And DV Sport really has tested video in the preseason. They've tested video in the Pro Bowl when there actually was a real Pro Bowl game. So they've already had that proof of concept. The National Football League is looking at doing video in 2025. They'll replace all the iPad or all the surfaces with new surfaces, and then they'll roll that out. What's really blocked the NFL from doing video on the sidelines is Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and Mike Zimmer, because they've said, hey, we don't want this. We think that we put a good game plan together, and these coaches that don't do very much are going to have access to what we're doing. So they've really blocked it through the competition committee. And unlike the NCAA, the NFL has a super majority. So that means 6 clubs can get together and block anything. In the NCAA, it's simple majority. So as a conference like the PAC or other conference can certainly say, well, we're not going to do it. Well, whoever gets in the playoffs for your team, good luck, because round 1, whoever you play is probably going to have it. Round 2 is probably going to have it. This is going to change things from a standpoint that you're going to need, in addition to your filmers, which is generally 2 people, a sideline end zone, you're going to need a guy on the sideline and a guy in the coach's box, and maybe even a runner. because if something were to go wrong, a coach isn't going to take his headset off and run up to the box and try and figure it out. Someone's going to have to do that.
Now, do you think for some of the schools, I know I've talked to a couple of the WEAC schools. I've talked to some PAC schools. I've talked to a couple of MAC schools and whatnot. And it really is it's a hodgepodge, because you have some people that are, we want to wait financially to see how we can do this as an equity thing for the conference. And you have some schools that are just kind of, like you said, I worked my ass off to build a game plan, and now Joey up in the booth is going to watch a couple plays, and now he has my entire he has an entire visual of what I'm trying to do. Do you think that there's going to be pushback a heavy pushback this first year, or is it just going to be kind of like, all right, we're going to roll it out and let's see what we can do with it?
I would venture to guess that the top 25 teams are going to do it. I can't talk about the other 220 some schools, what they're going to do, but the elite teams, the teams that are always there at the end, it would be hard to believe that they wouldn't do it. Now, a team like Baldwin Wallace, for example, how much closer does that help them to beating Mount Union in game? They've gotten closer and closer and closer. Is this the difference maker? And if Mount is so, arrogant that, well, we don't need this, we're just going to play the game, that's fine. But your opponents could be getting better and better because they can make those adjustments in game. It's really hard to say if, it's just like Division I. You have the top 80 schools, everyone else below there is probably misclassified. The same thing here. I think if you took the top, 35 teams or 36 teams, everyone else below there just, I don't know how they fit in.
And that I was going to ask you that's kind of how I want to wrap this up. Does this establish what could become a new division? Like we right before we were recording, we were talking about the up in New England. They don't join.
Yeah, the NESCAC.
They play their 10 games and that's that. Is this and that's like we said, it could be considered like a Division 4. You're not playing for a playoff. You're not involved in the playoff system. You play yours and you're done. Do you think that we could see that divide? Like there's 35, 40 teams maybe, and then everybody else below is just kind of trying to get back to an equal playing ground?
Unlikely, because the presidents control that decision. That's if it was the coaches, certainly, but not with the presidents. Right now you have 29 schools. Of the 29 schools, 15 of them probably don't belong in the playoffs, but they go. And I guess to me, and this is me as just an outsider, I don't work for a team per se. So if I made the playoffs and I got beat in the first round 70-0, what have I really accomplished other than, well, I made the playoffs? If you don't have a chance, if you don't see it to the end, what's the point of doing it?
Makes sense. And then my last question, where can everybody find the information on the Football Film Federation and the conference, and how can they get involved?
Well, pardon me. The website is probably the easiest place, footballfilmfederation.org. That allows you to see the itinerary, how to sign up, how to pay, how to attend. We did it in Minneapolis primarily because it's a hub airport. It's one of the cheapest airports to fly to from all over the country. The hotel that we worked with, which is where the Philadelphia Eagles stayed for the Super Bowl, they're the top 3 hotel in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. In Bloomington, they offered free shuttle ride to and from the airport, which is kind of unheard of today. Free Wi-Fi, free parking for people that drive up, and then the central location part of it, with the WIAC and MIAC and the ARC and even the CCIW, those guys can all drive here. I mean, you're talking about 50, 60 some schools that are all within driving distance, can make it up here. The biggest thing for these coaches is, and when I've talked to them at the various, like I was at the Wisconsin clinic, they're not ready. I mean, they just have no idea. I feel like a cross between Paul Revere and Chicken Little, that these tablets are coming and we can't stop it from happening. Whether you're ready or not, it's up to you. Now, what will happen is this: if one team in your conference decides to do it, they can do it. It doesn't matter if you decide not to do it. It's an NCAA rule.
Mhm.
Just like it's an NCAA rule that you couldn't have an iPad, or I mean, pardon me, a laptop in the press box.
Yeah.
Well, that's going away now because this will be adopted as part of that. So how do you know what they're doing with that iPad or laptop, in the
Mhm.
box? So the technology is going to happen. Us trying to stop it is like, paper
Trying to
mache.
strap a rock down a mountain.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go. But it's really and it has the potential to make your film better because
Mhm.
right now, if you're relying on away team video, look at the pluses. Here's a big plus from it. You play a game, you bring your film people, you have a game, and you have a 2.5 hour bus ride home. When you get on the bus, all 10, 11, 12, 18 of these iPads, for example, are going to have the game on it. Intercut, done, ready to go.
Yeah.
And you could go in there and enter in your data, do all that stuff, and then get back to the office, export that data and put it onto your video system, whether you have DV Sport, whether you have Exos or you have Huddle, or even I think it's Quick Cuts.
Mhm.
So there's 4 different video systems that are out there that people use. This is going to speed that up. The other part that it could help is with targeting. If you have these tablets, I mean, no official, I think it says in the rules, if you show a tablet to an official, it's an automatic 15-yard penalty. You can't go up to them and be like, I just saw the play here, come and look at it. That'll be an instant flag.
Okay.
But their ability to look at that video at halftime is going to be significantly better than it is now, because what most teams are doing now is they pull the SD card out of the camera, go over to a laptop, put it in, and kind of look for, I don't know, it's around play 35, and
Mhm.
they're looking for the play. And that official can look at the play and make a determination if it was targeting, and they can be reinstated. It does nothing for the second half. But as this thing evolves, this might lead to us having instant replay at every game in Division III,
Yeah.
because the tools are all already there. I mean, you're going to have you could have an extra tablet that's just for an official to come over and look at if they decided. And I don't know how officiating is going to evolve, but officiating is involved in all elements of football. That's why they want all the timing rules. And if you notice that now in Division III this year, you run out of bounds, the clock's going to continue to run. They want NFL, FBS, all levels of football to look and feel the same. They want the
Okay.
rules to be the same. They want the timing to be the same. So why not make the officiating and the instant replay part of it be the same?
Well, Chad, I want to say thank you very much. One more time. When is the conference? And give me that website one more time.
So it's Sunday the 28th. We kind of gave the 27th for a travel day, so it's easy to get in. 28th and 29th. It'll be done by 3 on Monday. Some people might not even stay the whole time, but the website is www.footballfilmfederation.org, and or on Twitter @footballfilmfed. A lot of information is being fed there. Probably the greatest thing that they can do is, if you pay and you attend, you're going to be eligible to win 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59. So it's probably one of the biggest things. We're talking about giving a $12,000 gift away, because these tickets are, I think, $6,000 a piece. That plus the incentive of having an opportunity to go have a tour of the Minnesota Vikings facility. There's a lot of things tied into this that are beneficial. And then we've got a lot of vendors that are going to be there that coaches want to see, whether it's PFF or, the Catapult wearables, or Optimum grading, and Game Strat, of course, will be there, DV Sport. And then one of the other things that's going to happen for next year, this is the last part I'll leave you with, is we're going to have radios in the helmets. So the leading expert on that, John Cave, who worked for the NFL for 25 years, is going to be at the conference, and he's going to show everyone what it looks like. You're going to be able to put a helmet on, hear what it looks like, and then find out how affordable it is. Now I say affordable, meaning, a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
But in comparison to $20,000, which is what the FBS schools are paying.
Chad, again, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to share this knowledge with us. Because, like I said, when we talked last week, I had known that the rule was on the docket, had no idea that it was we were already here. So for those of you, you know what happens. We're gonna be back next week, and hopefully we have a couple new rulings. So this will come into effect. I think the playoff rule should be determined by the end of today. So there's a lot of things changing here in Division III and in football as a whole. And it's going to be interesting to see who's on board and who gets left behind. But we'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.